Here's the cold thing about how women are wired. Like I said, that they are attracted to the alpha male because in the alpha they see strength and power. And a lot of times that's why women are attracted to the bad boy archetype, because the bad boy resembles a lot of the characteristics of the alpha. But here's the thing. All women are saying that they want the romantic guy and the sweet guy and the loving guy, and it's not true. They're just repeating what they've seen on the movies and on the cartoons. When the guy does all that sweet stuff and all that, they lose respect for him. And this is why.
Now you're smothering me.
This is why. Because inside, a woman knows how frail she is. And if you're bowing down to me, then you're going to bow down to the rest of the world. You don't have the strength needed to protect me. A woman loses respect for that guy. And none of them ever admit this because it sounds too dysfunctional, but it's the truth. Yeah, they lose respect when the dudes start doing everything that they want. You pretty much killed your relationship. Then the relationship dead. You just don't know it yet.
Evolving barbaric hieroglyphs, I spit my gifts, shift your surface with vernacular skill. The raw is near, touching down like meteors, none other than black gods. Stones in my timepiece coming from black stars. Negativity for keep far away from doors. Single-mindedly destroying the ops and the odds. Just another warrior's quest. The past may get rest. Demons coming for my crown, get beheaded like the next. These blessings never threats, just to verbalize a message, catching energies of critics, all the Atari get deaded. Pray I stay alert on the field, be skillmatic in anything my enemies steal. Be dead actions, I proceed just life I lead. Beneath it so many seas to win. It's our time to align stars, so spirits lead. Who could war with me, catastrophically or audibly? Given no choice by God's law, I'm Lucifer on streets.
Peace and power. Once again, this big brother Psych, and this is your Panther 48. I got the chairman of the San Diego chapter of the Black Panther Party, Brother Robert Ward Williams, calling out of California.
Hope all the people, folks.
That's the first time I seen you in a white shirt. You usually in all black. What's going on? You been chilling with the White Panther Party lately?
Actually, kind of sorted last Thursday, but I just
shit
with my button.
Yeah,
my Teray button.
What is that? Who is that?
Kwame Teray, man.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see it because you wasn't coming on the screen. We got the official Minister of Information, Emeritus. He's our official Minister of Information for the Panther 48, and he is the second in the line of Minister of Information for the original New Black Panther Party, founded under David Foreman and Aaron Michaels. We got Brother E calling out of Florida.
Greetings, y'all. I'm not exactly sure what the subject is tonight, so I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be a drop the mic moment, so hold on.
And you got me, myself, Brother Sight, calling out of Dallas, Texas. Brother E is full of it because he know what we're going to talk. What we're going to talk about today, today's subject matter, and I'm going to let Brother E start it off and kick it off and lay the platform for this. We're going to talk about the alpha male perspective of polygamy. You know, we done had conversations in the past about being faithful in relationships and things like this. Today, we're going to talk about polygamy and the alpha male perspective of that. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Brother E. And Brother E is too early to drop the mic, so.
Oh, hell no, not for me. I'll drop the motherfucking walkout right now. I don't give a shit. My mere presence alone is cause for a microphone drop. Okay, fine, I'll take it. So, polygamy, alpha male perspective. I have no real concrete definition of what an alpha male is. So if we could start from there, Syke, since you're the self-proclaimed alpha male of the three of us, me being Sigma, and War being accused of being beta all the time, that pretty much rounds out the trio. So if you could give us a rundown real quick, just what is, I hear alpha male all the time, and my understanding is it has something to do with being the prime, the main, that cat, that dude. But what are the characteristics? What does that really mean in the situation? And no, I don't want to ask that question. Just starting from that, a basic definition from which to build and understand in context the idea of polygamy. Because and I bring up polygamy because it's one of those things that is misunderstood within our community. It's been a historical concept for thousands upon thousands of years in most every culture on the face of the planet, including Europeans, but Europeans being ass tight and whatnot, and wanted to pose and prop themselves up as high and mighty and, you know, holier than thou and all of that, rather than have that as a reality and a healthy situation in their culture and their community. Put people in a situation where you sneak and connive and do all of these other things and give it a very foul, especially through religion, a very foul flavor or connotation for folks. You know, when it came to this culture, it got boiled down to, the idea of polygamy got boiled down to, and this is the thing that I almost always hear in response off the top, is sex. That's it. That's all anybody commutes about or computates about polygamy. His idea is the dude gets all the treats because he gets to have sex with a bunch of different women, you know, and there's nothing else contextually, there's nothing else culturally, there's nothing else discussed about it. That's where it stops. The sex and the possessive, which for me, a big part of the problem that sisters today have with the idea of polygamy is this possession shit. You know, this need to be the one, which to me boils down to and goes back to this constant state of what is it? Unsure of oneself. What's the word?
Insecurity.
Insecurity. The fundamental insecurities of the female ego. You know, so a lot of the repudiation or the kicking away from it, for me, comes from, you know, those two areas. But like I said, since it's coming, I'm trying to dig into understanding an alpha male better and relating the concept of polygamy. I want to understand better what is an alpha male's perspective. I know what mine is. I can kind of guess what Wars is, but since you, the M.O.B. and shush, I'm not saying nothing. I said a viewpoint. I said a viewpoint. That's all I said. That's it. You looking at me like that, get your guitar out, War. I'm gonna turn it over to Syke. So Syke, if you can give us an outline, a square for an idea of what exactly an alpha male is.
This might not be just basic, because I think I'm gonna use a little bit of war-esque, a word I just made up to represent a LinkedIn talking style based off the brother War himself. So I'm gonna call it war-esque. I'm gonna go into it as a war-esque type of conversation. So anyway, and I'm gonna need you to give me your understanding and a breakdown of what you believe polygamy is when we finish with this. So let's go all the way back, because when we hear alpha male right now in today's society, a whole lot of guys pop up on YouTube who have the word alpha in their YouTube channels, and they usually define the alpha male as this guy probably having a lot of money, probably pretty stocky, muscular, and probably sleep with a lot of women. That's not necessarily the traditional archetype of the alpha. Now, originally the alpha was used to describe gorillas and wolves. That was the original place it was used, because it was recognized that in those particular packs, and I don't think the gorillas is called a pack, I don't know what it is, so y'all just gonna have to go with me, but it was recognized that there was always one who stood out amongst all the rest, and that one was the one that the females was the most attracted to, and that's why they called him the alpha. Alpha in the Greek alphabet is the first letter of the alphabet, means the prime or the first. Anyway, the alpha was usually the best fighter. Usually the alpha was the strongest, and it was the one that had the greatest ability to protect the pack. That was usually the alpha. And so the alpha, that particular person came to be known as the alpha, and he represented that strength that attracted the females of the group. Then social scientists started to recognize that the same phenomenon occurred in human society. The same phenomenon occurred. While it's not as primitive as it is in a wolf pack or in a pack of gorillas, but it still existed anyway. The women was attracted to the men that they saw strength in, to a man if they saw power in. And originally, just like with the wolf or with the gorilla, it was usually, because you got to remember that human society existed before we invented civilization. A lot of times we'll talk about human society and we think human society and civilization is interchangeable, and it's not. So human society existed before we invented civilization, before we had a police force, before we had a military, before we invented cities, before we had any of that. Human beings would just wander nomadically in the wilderness. And so therefore you had women would be attracted to the man that she saw the most strength in, the man who could protect her and defend her, the man who could protect her children. Because if she made it with a weak man, then stronger men could take her children from her, enslave her children, kill her children, rape her. Basically, there was no stability with a man that had no strength. So the alpha was the male that was seen as the one who could guarantee security. So as our civilization evolved, so that the ideal of what the alpha was and the characteristics of the alpha, while the alpha still is defined by certain things like a broad chest, broad arms, strength, the ability to fight, the courage to stand up in the face of danger, things like that. The alpha also now is represented by things like his financial status, because of his ability to bring forth security. You don't necessarily have to be the best fighter anymore. If your finances are right, you can hire the best fighters to be around you to secure your family and to secure your team. The one that had the better plans, the one who had the ability to think through problems and then come up with solutions, and therefore lead his team to those victories. So alpha started to evolve in this meaning over time. Excuse me. It started to evolve in this meaning over time, but primarily that's what the alpha is. And let me say this: unlike in a wolf pack, the alpha wasn't necessarily an alpha male amongst human beings. That alpha might not be the only one. See, amongst wolves, if a young cub started to stand up a little bit and start showing alpha tendencies, the current alpha would usually kill him, take him out. Same thing amongst the gorillas, because they knew what was coming. If you let him get big enough and strong enough, he was going to kill that alpha who had got a little bit older, a little bit slower. He would kill him and he would become the alpha. So amongst those packs, there could only be one alpha. But amongst human beings, hell, alpha males might congregate together. They might come together and form that mastermind alliance and move together and operate together. You might have 5 or 6 friends that are all alphas in their own sphere that don't necessarily have to end up fighting or having conflict with one another. So that's what the alpha concept represented then, and that's what the concept represents now.
Well, then alpha, like everything else, is contextual. It's relative.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I could be alpha today or alpha in this situation and beta in another situation.
Well, no, no. And let me say this, because you never lose the characteristics that make you alpha. We had this conversation before, and you were saying
I wasn't listening
because the person that went to he go to work and he has to basically submit to a boss. Then in that situation, he's not alpha. We're not talking about now. We're talking about two different things there. We're not saying just because you alpha don't mean that you are in human society. Just because you alpha does not mean that you are the boss in every situation. It doesn't mean that. That doesn't mean that. But you don't lose your alphaness, because one thing about an alpha and the characteristics of an alpha may have the humility to go along with another man's plan. He may have the humility and even the good sense to, let's say, for the sake of conversation, let's say War decided to start a metaverse company. He started this whole company where he done created a school in the metaverse. He done built all of this. He got it under control. He got it. He know what to do with it. You and I don't necessarily know what to do. We don't know the technology. We have some information to add to it, but what War want to take us is going to make us extremely wealthy. It's going to help us bring some of our plans and our goals to life. So it just simply makes sense for us to go along with War. And it doesn't weaken us. It doesn't make us less than a man because of that. I would even argue that it makes us more of a man, because a real man is so secure in who he is in his own manhood that he has no problem following someone who has a better plan. It's one of the things I used to tell the brothers when we was organizing in the gulag. It's one of the things I used to tell the brothers, because you'd have that conflict that would consistently happen between brothers who felt they were strong. You'd have that. And I used to tell the brother, we do not have to conflict with each other because you're a king and I'm a king. It just depends on who chessboard we on. See, when you on my chessboard, you have to be able to recognize that I'm the king here. And then you got to be willing to be my bishop or my knight. And then when we on your chessboard, I have to recognize that you're the king there. And I have to be willing to play the part of your bishop. We look at presidents. President Biden, I know you love him so much. President Biden is the president of the United States of America. When he flies to China, he's not the president of China. If he goes to China and starts trying to operate like he's the president of China, there's going to be a problem. When he goes to China, he has to recognize that somebody else is the president of China or the president of Russia or the president of wherever he goes to. He has to recognize that. He can't go to these places and think that he can go in, sit amongst Congress, call shots, tell people he just simply can't do it. You know, and I know you're going to think about, I'm not getting into colonization and imperialism and neo-colonialism and how America actually puts puppets into place and actually do control other countries. I'm not getting into that. I'm just talking about the basics of the concept of the idea. So the alpha never stops being alpha. See, one of the characteristics of a beta, one of the things about a beta is this, is that and beta being the second letter in the Greek alphabet, one of the things about a beta, especially in the way he deals with a woman. See, a beta is as the philosophy, a happy wife, happy life. You know, he's willing to kind of let his wife run things, let his woman run things. He's not as aggressive as the alpha. And so he's non-aggressive, and that doesn't necessarily mean he's weak. He's just non-aggressive, usually in just about every situation, whether he's at work, whether he's at home, whether he's dealing with his wife, whether he's dealing with his children, while the alpha is usually a little bit more aggressive in every situation that he's in, even at work. Even if he's saying yes, sir, to his boss can't say, you piece of shit, get in there and do the boss. The alpha's boss cannot talk to him like that for the most part. A lot of times the alpha, if he's in a situation, if he's in a situation like that, he'll leave that job before he'll just sit there and tolerate that. He'll leave that woman before he'll tolerate that type of abuse. He just can't do it. It hurts his soul to tolerate things like that because it's the way he's built, it's the way his inner self is constructed. Does that make any sense?
Well, so what's the difference between, okay, so you told me you characterized me as a Sigma. Yeah? Yes. Okay.
I say you would be closer to a Sigma than I believe a beta.
Well, that's good to know. So I mean, it seems like, because when I hear alpha male, you know, I think in terms of, I don't do categories well. There's genres of music or art or whatever it is. They don't click for me for whatever reason, because there are too many gray areas and loopholes. So it sounds like alpha is really just an aggressive Sigma.
No.
If he turns it off in this situation, but then it's on in that situation, is he really an alpha, or is he able to do alpha things at particular times?
See, these things that we're using are nothing more than archetypes. So there is not if you can't think of it in an extreme. You can't think of it to be an alpha. You have to run every single thing you have to run every single thing in life. And if somebody else is running things or calling shots, then there's no way you're an alpha. See, and I used this example before, and I'm going to get to the point you just made. I used this example before. If we're talking about OG Nuck Nuck, he the OG. I just made him up. OG Nuck Nuck. He the OG of the Bloods and the East Dallas projects. He doesn't really exist. He's an alpha in that environment. But the chief of police can send the police down there on him and his whole team just because the chief is more alpha than him in that situation, because the chief of the police has the weight of the law on his side, does not take away the fact that OG Nuck Nuck is an alpha. It's how he raised to the position that he's in his neighborhood. But because the president got more power than the chief of police, doesn't take away the fact that chief of police is an alpha. See, and that's the thing about, I said, the differences between human societies and a pack of wolves. That's the difference between those. And a pack of wolves it's kind of like Highlander. There'll only be one. As soon as the alpha sees a young pup coming up and expressing alpha tendencies, because, and I can't say he know, but it's his instinct that that pup will one day try to take him out of the game, because that's the only way the pup can become the alpha of the pack. So he will kill that pup. He'll kill it. And if he slips and misses it and doesn't see it, then that pup would instantly take him out of the game. And I said that to say this. Now we go to the Sigma male. The Sigma, and don't take offense when I say this, but a lot of times you'll see the Sigma is a recluse. They are pulled away from society. Some of them people that even bombs on, some of the people that even bombs on the streets are Sigmas, because a Sigma does not want to conform to the standards that society has established. The Sigma doesn't want to conform. The Sigma does his own thing. Andre 3000 in rap. You see how he started dressing, and everybody thought that was weird. That's when I wanted the classification for his style is a dandy, but his mind state is that of a Sigma. I don't conform. The average person in rap has this gangster image. Hell, I come out with some hockey boots on, and I just want to do my own thing. Or even somebody like CeeLo from Goody Mob. This is that Sigma mentality. I do not wish to conform. And I don't care what you think of me or say about me. I'm not falling into those classifications. The alpha, because of his natural aggressiveness, automatically wants to move to the highest level that he can move to in the pack, while the Sigma doesn't even care. The pack is here with me. I'm the pack. And so whatever I'm doing in that moment is what's happening. And the beta doesn't even really want to even be in those lights, because the beta understands that I may be called to duty. I might have to fight. I might have to be in combat. And the beta never wants that. And the beta doesn't want to deal. Beta wants to get along to a certain degree. And these classifications are important to understand, because a lot of time what happens is women will be attracted to an alpha, because women are, but a woman with a certain personality type could never get along with alpha. She may need a beta. And that's not saying a negative thing. They're saying that and a beta needs a certain type of woman. He don't need a passive woman. He doesn't need a soft, humble woman, because he's a beta. Somebody has to lead in that association. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the differences between the Sigma, the beta, and the alpha.
Okay, you told you told what type of female beta would need. I want to know this. I want to see what you're gonna say. And what type alpha would need? What type for the archetype would a Sigma theoretically need?
But see, there's the rub. There's the problem.
That's the complicated one. It's I like that. I'm Sigma all day. I'll take that. I'm running with it. That's it. Y'all can call me brother Siggy, baby. That's who I am.
It's extremely complicated because of the personality of the Sigma. A Sigma actually doesn't have a certain type of woman that fits him well because of his personality. Again, the Sigma doesn't like to conform. The Sigma wants to do things his way, forget what society is saying. The Sigma does not like to conform. And so very few women can actually deal with the way a Sigma is. See, a Sigma, one of the things about a Sigma is the Sigma is also can be considered flaky, because the Sigma can be considered extremely flaky. Yeah, the Sigma is flaky because of his need not to conform. He doesn't like to plan. He doesn't like to be struck. He doesn't like any of that. The Sigma doesn't like to function in any of those structured type of roles. So, that's why the Sigma has a hard time in a traditional relationship with a woman, because that's a structure. And there's usually conflict that comes if the Sigma tries to be with a very passive woman, or if the Sigma even tries to be with a very aggressive woman. There's conflict with both of those.
Yeah, been there, done both of those. So next time I don't have a platform for a show idea, y'all just blame it on the Sig and me. I'm your Sigma man. Yeah, that's me. I'm gonna ride that, wheels come off. So in terms of something like polygamy, you keep going back to relationships, male, female, the reality of it is, until the male-female dynamic is restored to some level of functionality in this society, we ain't never gonna be free. You know, if family is the foundation of the community, that male-female dynamic is the foundation of the family, and whatever their interaction is gets taught to the next generation, and they pick it up, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they do the same thing, which is how we got in this mess with the process of the breaking of African people to make slaves, and not having to jump the broom, and watching your woman get raped and not being able to do shit about it, and having your kids taken away, and all the things that they put us through that have led us to this point. So until we repair that, you know, it's a no-go for me. But hold on, I missed it. You say, now what's a no-go for you? Us truly being in a position of power, being in a position of any type of unity, self-determination, any of the things that we talk about, until that male-female dynamic. I mean, because even, I mean, you look at my children, as much as I fought to impress upon them the things that we were doing and whatnot, because their mother and I had issues and weren't able to do, you know, make things work and whatnot. My oldest is having issues, you know, my other children are having issues because they've seen the non-functionality between their mother and I go down, and they've taken that and run with it, and now it's getting projected into their relationships, which is causing our people, our communities to further stray from one another. The animosity between Black men and Black women is at all-time high. When we was in so-called slave days, we was getting beat every day, when sisters was getting raped every day by white folks, by Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Hamilton and all the rest of them peckerwoods. We still had our relationships, to whatever degree, more intact then than we do now. Sisters would still ride and die for the Black man, for the African man. The African man still sought to be with, protect, and take care of that Black woman. It was still there, and it carried us forward through those dark, dark times. But now we've gotten into a position where some folks think that, you know, they don't need a man, or they can make money themselves, or they can do bad all by themselves, and blah, 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 all these other things, because that's, it's there. It's more and more. White folks have convinced sisters that, number one, they don't need a man. Number two, if they need a man, a white man will do. It's okay. It's all good. So the animosity and the anger, misdirected anger, is at all-time highs. And as long as that's the case, we can never build a foundation for a nation, for a neighborhood, for a community, for even a family, not a stable one. So that's why I say, doing any of these lofty things that we seek to do, what it all boils down to is repairing home, repairing that place. And that's why a lot of times, I know back in the day, Ward spent a lot of his time being in people business, basically, and trying to help manage and resolve issues between, you know, membership and their spouse, their man or their woman or whatever, was attempting to project what it is we're teaching in our classes, what we're doing in the community, trying to get sisters and brothers to take these ideas and these lofty goals and principles out of the textbooks, out of the streets, and apply it to their own selves and their own relationships. Because it's that one-on-one, if it's not there, it's not gonna happen. That's just the way it is. There's no successful civilization in the history of man that has ever been successful without the male-female relationship intact.
And you know, I can agree with you on that. I can. That's why I truly believe that women was intentionally weaponized so that Absolutely. What you just said could be the reality of our day. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at our open enemies, the people or the group or the group of people who have traditionally and intentionally held the population in a somewhat psychological slavery. Look at all the different things and different tactics that was tried in order to make sure that the people never rose up. All those things were done intentionally. And I believe one of the strongest things that have been done is the weaponization of the woman. And I couldn't see it before, but I can see it clearly now. And I talk about it a lot because it affects me personally. But when I came home from my vacation, as Brother E likes to call it, when I came home and I started dealing with women and seeing women, I was shocked. You know, I'm like, what the hell happened in the last 2 decades that has made women so angry, so aggressive, so masculine? And maybe it was always here. It might be that situation where because you're in the middle of the party, you really can't see what's happening in the party. And then with me being separated for so long, not being around women really, not being in a relationship and coming home, it was in my face. You know, it was like, damn, you know, this modern day woman, you can't even say anything to me without getting aggression and anger. And I'm not making no excuses for myself. I know that I have my own personal attributes, but I can say this about me. I can actually be controlled by a woman. I actually can. I know y'all probably think to yourself, hell.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
we didn't told you that. We didn't told you that.
But hold on.
What type of woman?
Hold on.
That's the problem.
I can't be controlled by aggression. I will fight aggression until I die. Yes. It's something in me that refuses to accept aggression from somebody. And when you think of control, you usually think of it from a forceful standpoint. A woman can control me with finesse, with softness. That's what it takes. And I'll submit to that all day.
Every time.
I can't submit to aggression.
Every time.
I can't. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the conflict I have. But back to what I was saying, even William Cooper talked about this in Behold a Pale Horse. Shahrazad Ali talks about it to a degree in The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman. And I know y'all hate this guy. I know y'all hate this guy, but Kevin Samuels talked about this. This is what the dude talked about essentially, how modern women are basically becoming the enemies of modern men. Yeah. And I don't think it's in a woman's nature to do that. It's not in her nature. Her nature comes out when she's in trouble, when she has an issue, it comes out. She looks toward her man for a solution, for help. You know what I'm saying? But what she's been turned into by this society is what is the record that she's playing on an everyday basis. And it's almost like that programming, that weaponization is for the purpose of kind of breaking the man's spirit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I hope the sisters don't leave in the comments. Oh, he sound like he hate women, because I don't. I love women, but I don't love what I've seen, what I recognize. Even we can use this example. The crack was a weapon that was used against us in the 80s. And everybody know they got a great show on TV I like, you probably don't like it, called Snowfall, that talks about how the CIA flooded cocaine into the Black community during the 80s to fund the country wars in Nicaragua and things like this. And there are certain Black men that got extremely rich from doing this. They was weapons against the community. They was getting rich and taking care of their personal needs, but they were completely destroying the community. And it's one episode of that show. It stood out to me that dude that lost all his money, dope dealer, lost all his money. The only thing that he still owned outright was certain properties, but those properties was in the community that he had flooded with crack. So the property value had went down. So the properties that he owned didn't even really have no value. He destroyed the value of his own properties by flooding the community with crack. It's ironic, but all these are weapons that are being used against us. And to me, the most dynamic, based on what you just said, that we could never be free until the female-male relationship is repaired, the weaponization of the woman against that revolutionary man would be the coup de grace that any wise enemy could use against a people.
Absolutely. And Mr. Farrakhan's talked about it. Malcolm, everybody has talked about it. All of our rock stars have talked about the idea. Number one, I concur. Sisters have been weaponized against us. Absolutely. We have to, I guess that's a topic for another show, and it'd be great to have some sisters to come in and put their 2 cents in, or 25 cents or whatever. I wasn't dissing, it's just a phrase. Get the fuck over it. Yeah. To talk about how we've been weaponized as well. But the reality of it is, yes, the enemy is always making a play for the woman, because they know that whatever you do to a man, you do to a man. But when you do something to a woman, you do it to an entire generation. True indeed. So getting the man out of the way, that's the aggression. That's the bang your head up against this brick wall. Being able to get to the woman, that's the secret weapon. That's the back door into it's the back door of infiltration into people's reality, a people's community. Once you have a woman on your side, it's pretty much a wrap. you know, you got to go down a much deeper, darker rabbit hole to get out of that shit. When your woman turns against you in mass, and I'm not saying a woman, I'm saying, you know, women, period. And that's essentially, to me, where we're at. And that kind of spills over, I guess, in a way to what the topic is supposed to be, addressing the idea, and this is what Europeans do, the idea of polygamy, of a man being in committed, married, whatever that looks like, relationships with more than one woman, has been boiled down to this dude gets to have sex with a bunch of women. And that's what the society get, basically a player. And that's not what it is. You know, there, like I said, there are cultural and contextual reasons that it's existed in the past. One of the easiest is that there are have always been more women than men in the world, period. You know, along with things like, you know, financial considerations with rearing the children, and all of these sorts of things are things that are not considered because of the emotionality that gets involved and the need to possess in a situation. And it's no small task. You know, you talk about, sisters talk about, like to throw out there, oh, he gets to have a bunch of sex and whatnot. The flip side of that, and it's almost, because I'm not for or against it. I recognize that it could be applicable. It's not something I'm in pursuit of. Understand, I'm not an advocate for it. I'm just talking about it. I'm not in pursuit of it. I'm not against it. It's a reality that could very well work. Being unfaithful outside of a relationship is a danger, regardless of how many relationships you have. If you're in a monogamous relationship, the possibility that he's gonna fuck around is still there.
Yeah.
Regardless. So it's not that there's another woman so much, it's the insecurity. It's the infidelity, or the possibilities of infidelity that exists, that often have women in this particular mind state and this fear of being in that situation. But the reality of it is that the flip side of having all that fun, and you know, I've been married, been married. The reality of it is, just because you get married don't mean you get to have a bunch of sex. Let's just understand that. That's not how that shit works. I've been married twice. That's not how that shit works. It's not, you know, okay, everybody come on whenever you want. No, it doesn't go down like that. But the flip side, even if that was the case, the flip side of it is, can you imagine how much work goes into managing the emotional state of more than one woman, let alone a woman who's working to have a situation where she knows there's this other, quote unquote, this other woman? That's a lot of fucking work. Trying to manage the emotions of one woman, and let's face it, our brothers are fucked up. We're all dysfunctional. We all got issues. All sisters are fucked up. All got issues, all got dysfunctionality. So unfortunately, a lot of the times, the dysfunctionality that sisters are exposed to and come under fire with are much more violent and sexual in nature, and causes a lot deeper damage to her than what it is we go through. So here comes Johnny into the picture. Good man is doing his best to manage the emotional state of the woman that he cares about. If she's fucked up, her emotions are just really jacked up. And I don't mean any disrespect by saying you fucked up. Like I said, we're fucked up, but let's just call it what it is. It's fucked up. So if her emotional state is all jacked up and whatnot, that's extra work he's got to do to attempt, depending on how deep her scars are, how much time he's got to invest in that. Now you add to that another scenario where 9 times out of 10, this woman has had some type of violence and or sexual violence visited upon her in some form or fashion in her life. That's just the reality. I don't know that I've met too many sisters that haven't had that shit come along. That's really fucked up. But that's the type of management situation, or having to what they say now, handle me, or whatever they like to say. Oh man, he really, that's the type of scenario and situation that would exist in any type of a monogamous relationship, a polygamous relationship. It doesn't matter. That reality is still there. But as I said, having more than one partner just doubles or triples or whatever the number is of amount of work that a brother would have to manage, you know, and on an advantage side of it, looking at pragmatically, if any, and it could look any kind of way, I would imagine that a polygamous relationship may be everybody in one house, maybe him in a house and each of them in their own house, or I'm imagining it can go any type of way, but being able to share finances, being able to sit back, if someone wants to take off a year from work to go to school to pursue a passion, that option is now there. You have the option of homeschooling your children. You have the option of not having to have your children with you all the time so that you can get a break, or send your man away. Because the reality of it is, sisters, at some point, your man, no matter how much you love him, you don't want to deal with him. There are times, I'm saying without saying, there are times when y'all just don't want to deal with that masculine energy, and being able to shoo him away and know where he is and have whatever level of comfort that brings has got to be an advantage point. There's no real logical argument against that reality. The only arguments against it really are emotions, are emotional. You know, I feel like this. I think he's gonna play off, or it's like playing off, or I don't share my man with nobody. And all of those are all emotional expressions and not really reasons, just by the definition of the word reason. They're not reasonable, so they're not reasons. So, and I know, War, you are forbidden. War been on mute the whole time because War ain't gonna get in trouble tonight. He's gonna play the beta role right about now.
He's gonna beta it up.
But the reality of it is, just judging from what you said, Psych, about the whole what do you call that? Sigma.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, so how does an alpha male, and I'm still working through how this alpha shit works. I like the Sigma. I got the Sigma on lock. We're good. Me, Prince, you know, all the other artists in the world, we're Sigma. Andre, all of them, we Sigma. But
no, not all the artists. I got to stop you.
Not all the artists.
Yes, well, come on. Who you gonna name? Because I'm gonna shoot you down. Tell you, get your guitar out so you can tell yourself.
Andre 3000.
We can start with Outkast. Who was Andre's partner?
What the hell is that? What are you talking about?
I'm telling you, the other dude was not a Sigma.
He's not an artist.
Yes, he is an artist, man.
Nah.
He kept it going.
He a performer.
Oh, he talking about artists.
I'm talking about an artist. I mean, you named all those things you said about Sigma. I could say about a real artist. Temperamental, don't like to conform. All of that stuff you said, you described artists all day long. That's why I was loving it.
Away with that with Big Boy. No.
Big Boy, Michael Jackson, I ain't scared. All of them. Andre, he's out there. Creative shit. Big Boy was a performer. I like Big Boy, but he ain't no art. He ain't bucking. He ain't bucking the construct to give a vision of what could be, an interpretation of what is and where it's going. That's the job of an artist. Andre does that. Big Boy don't do it. That was why they worked well together, because Andre was the structure. I mean, Big Boy was the structure, and Andre was just all over the place, and that shit played well together. Name me two real artists that work together.
That's some artists. Okay, whatever.
What?
I don't want us to digress. So keep going.
Okay, my bad. We'll talk about art, and we won't have this problem. We're gonna do a show on art. I'm gonna make y'all do a show on art, on Black art, Harlem Renaissance, all them good things at some point. But yeah, please, Psych, as an alpha male, what are your perspectives on the concept of polygamy as it is and as it was?
The alpha primarily has access to more than one woman, because more than one woman is usually attracted to the alpha and wants the alpha. So the alpha usually has access to more than one woman. Even though we're in this time where culturally, and see, that's where monogamy is coming from. Monogamy and polygamy comes from culture. So we're in a society that teaches that the primary relationship between man and woman should be a monogamous one. And women seek after a monogamous relationship. Now, here's the cruel trick nature has played on us if we look at it. See, by the way that a woman is structured, it fits her needs to be in a monogamous relationship, to have that man's 100% focus on her. You know, that woman can only sustain pregnancy from one man for almost an entire year, 9 months. That woman, it fits her needs for her to be the center of his universe to protect her and her children. It fits her needs. Why it fits the man's needs to be able to spread his seed to as many women as possible. It will pass his genetics on. It's a greater chance that his genetics will be passed to the future if he has 3, 4, 5, 6 women pregnant than it does if he only impregnated one woman and dealt with one woman. It fits his needs more. A man can impregnate theoretically a different woman every day.
Every day.
Say that.
That sounds.
That's 352. And it's interesting to me. You know, there's a reason that in the X-Men, Storm, this woman who has influence over the climate, over the weather, is an African woman. And it's funny that that same thing that you just said about having a man put all his attention on her and have her be the focus and the center of what he's doing, not realizing, and this is the rub, not realizing that by doing that, she's, what am I trying to say? If the climate at home is off, usually it's because the woman is off. Her emotional state is off. Shahrazad Ali has talked about it. When a brother comes home from work or whatever, a lot of times he kind of have to peek his head in the door to see what's waiting, because it could be anything. You know, if the chicks on The View was acting right, okay, she had a good day. You know, or if whatever happened with Susie and Sally at the job was not to her liking, she could be having a bad day. And he's gonna catch it one way or the other emotionally. And again, that's where that management comes in. But if he's tied to a single moon, again, looking at what the moon's relationship is and what the moon actually does and its effect on emotions and whatnot is very apropos. But if her emotions are in a certain place, it fucks him up. You know, it's like you used to tell us about dudes that would go in, and because they find out their woman is on the outside and she's, you know, kicking them to the curb or playing off or whatever, cats up in there committing suicide. You know, dudes done survived shootouts, then been knocked upside the head by the cops and whatnot. But this woman, who he's so emotionally tied to, does this certain thing and his shit's just all fucked up. So she kind of shoots herself in the foot by having him tied into her emotional state. Again, there's at least one time on a regular basis, without saying it, that y'all's emotions are fucked up from our perspective, from where we're sitting. It's difficult for us to handle it. So at least if at no other point in time, when that time comes around, when those emotions are in motion, energy in motion, they're fluid and they're moving back and forth. We're not built like that. We're not built to handle that just off the top. We have to learn and study and work to be able to manage that. So if she's like that and he's not aware and he's not capable and whatnot, it puts him in a fucked up situation and his whole world. If a man is tied to a woman, a single woman emotionally, anytime she's happy, he's ecstatic.
Yeah.
Whenever she's sad, he's depressed.
Yeah.
Whenever she's kind of mundane and kind of, he's confused as fuck. And that's just the reality of it. So tying a man into your emotional state probably ain't what you want to do, because it's fucking up the whole rotation. You know, he can't keep his mind on work because he's so focused on your shit, and you're not happy. He don't understand why you got food and the house. What the fuck is wrong? What that's what goes through our minds. We don't work like that.
Yeah.
And knowing that we don't work like that, consideration has to be made. And again, that's that time when you say, look, I can't deal with your manhood right now. Take your shit to Keisha's house, you know, be her man for a week or a month, whatever it is, whatever the scenario is, knowing where your man is And again, this ain't player shit. So we going out fucking every chick that comes over to Keisha's house, all her cousins and everything. It's a committed, open and honest relationship, a situation where people communicate. So, and we have to keep that in mind. We're not talking about player shit. That's not been there, done that. We ain't talking about that shit. We're talking about above board relationships, productive, healthy, interactive relationships, and how they can be used to manage and to address the ills and shit that's fucking up the community. You know, and I think that there was a sister that pointed out to me at one point in time, because sisters have this tendency to get emotionally connected to a man, especially once sex is involved. So tying herself to him is just as onerous, is just as dangerous as her wanting him to be tied to her. So, you know, that's a resident Sigma perspective, I guess. I don't know, on a situation. I know War, again, can't say shit, so I guess I toss it back to you, Psych. War, get your guitar out. Where's the guitar, man?
I would like to have a little bit to say so.
We've been waiting on you.
We've been waiting on you.
I mean, you ask what you need. You a party goer? You waiting on an invitation now? Come on, Mr. War. Tell us what you think about the situation. What is it?
I would just say this. As it applies to a relationship, when we talk, whether we talk about multiple women or a single woman within a relationship, and we're going to talk about polygamy versus what they call it, polyandry. Yeah, the one where the woman can have multiple men. The bottom line to me, and I want to look at it from a warrior perspective, has to do with the chances of being able to populate and multiply and have a stronger bloodline or seed line, and the chances of that being able to continue on is what, to me, the nature of polygamy is about. As well as when you talk about the relationships between the man and a woman, I would say the thing with a polygamous relationship is that woman also, or should I say the women, are able to bounce off each other and help rise each other up to the occasion. And so to me, that would be the harmonious aspect of that relationship. I think the problem that we deal with kind of goes back to what you said in regards to what happened during chattel slavery. And to me, that would go into what I would have to ask about, well, what role or did the African captive slave, was he able to be an alpha male in that situation? Because the way I saw it, the quote unquote alpha male was the one that got buck broken. And from that standpoint, making sure that they was able to create that weakness within our gene and our genetic line from that standpoint is what created the weaponization of the woman against the man now. And I think when you look at society now, that same thing continues in a certain fashion. The way it may not necessarily be physical, but it's psychological. Psychologically, what they do is they attempt to make the woman more masculine, and they attempt to make the man act like a woman. And so now you find relationships to where women feel like they are able to identify as a man and do all of the things of what they consider to be male dominant or male aspects within society, whereas the men have been tricked into believing that they have a sexual freedom to be able to bump with each other. I have no idea how this perversion elaborated itself to the degree of what's going on, other than to trace it back to a lot of the things that went on with buck breaking. And so when we deal with that type of relationship, that leaves open more opportunity for a healthy polygamous relationship than it does a monogamous relationship. But the confusion comes into play is because you have now a situation where what defines a marriage, you know? And so do we look at upon marriage as it applies to do with procreation, or is marriage just a situation where two or more people love each other and want to have a connective bond in terms of enjoying each other's company and building a quote unquote household together? So we have to ask ourselves, especially when we kept using the concept of player having sex, what is the nature of a family structure? what defines a functioning family? Is it procreation, or is it just people being able to, quote unquote, love one another regardless of the sexual aspects of procreation? So that's a question I pose.
That was a long ass question. Can you repeat it? Shit.
But let me add on, and I'm pretty sure E, you'll be able to come in on this add on. I want to add on to this before I move to this, because he talked about it in the beginning. I don't think he talked about it today, but he's talked about it before. But he did talk about this today, that there could really be no real freedom until the relationship dynamic between the man and the woman has been repaired. And that dynamic is so dysfunctional now that I personally don't see, and I'm not saying I have the greatest sight in the world, I just don't see that reparation happening anytime soon. Now, you say, what was the purpose of the family? The purpose of the family was to build civilization. It was to build a society. The family was the first organization that the human being belonged to. A man and a woman, and I'm going to talk about this from a little bit from a spiritual standpoint, a man and a woman both are the opposite representations of the universal energy that we like to call God. You know, they are the opposite representation of that energy, the yin and the yang. They are both that. The female is the feminine aspect of it, and the male is the masculine aspect of it. We're supposed to come together. Man and woman, you coming together in unity and actually build each other up. There are schools of thought that say man is supposed to represent knowledge, therefore he represents the sun, while a woman is supposed to represent wisdom, therefore she represents the moon. And when knowledge shines upon wisdom and they come together, they produce understanding, which is represented by the child. But a woman has to be in her natural state of being receptive to what it is the man is trying to give her. She has to be receptive. And then once she takes that he gives her, whether it's knowledge or whether it's the life-giving seed, she takes that, then she has the ability to incubate that and then produce life from it. That's when we're all operating in our natural state. The problem that we have now, and I talked about the weaponization and war brought up slavery. The problem that we have now is that all of that has been destroyed. The traditional relationships, the traditional families, now it's not my husband and my children and my family, now it's my 3 baby daddies, you know, and a man would once look for a woman to plant his bloodline in and then to grow and build and structure his family from. You could look at people like Solange Knowles, and I don't know their history, but Solange and Beyonce look so much alike, you could tell that they had the same mother and father. You know what I'm saying? While today's time, a brother or 2 brothers can look completely different from each other. A brother and a sister can look completely different from each other because there is this accepted thing going on in our society called the baby daddy and the baby mama and the child support and all of this corrupt stuff. And I never really thought about it until you said it was, but maybe the alpha male could not possibly exist during slavery because he was murdered. If you even showed any little bit of aggression or your desire to be a man, you were strung up and killed. You had to bow out. And even Shahrazad Ali even talked about it. Sometimes you took that penis. Sometimes the slave master would put penis in you just to make sure you didn't even, just to divert any idea that you had that you could possibly be considered or seen as a man, you know. And I had a debate with a brother when I was incarcerated about the origins of homosexuality. And you know, he was a black man. He was a but this was a nigga. And you know, he argued against everything black. And you know, I was showing him through dynamic facts that just about everything dealing with civilization came out of Africa. And he couldn't argue, he just couldn't argue these things. So then he tried to flip the script and say that then that means that homosexuality had to come out of Africa. And then I told him, no, you're not doing real scholarship. I say, give me the proof. I say, you have no proof. See, I got proof that it came out of Europe. You have no proof. The gymnasium, which was Greek for naked games, where they used to get butt naked and wrestle with each other and slip the penis in each other. The island of Lesbos, where females were trained in the art of pleasing women. The Spartans used to have the little boys suck their penises and drink their cum because they believed that they would get the warrior spirit, at least our way until the boys got married. I mean, we can go on and on and on. You have none of this that you can show me from traditional Africa before we had contact with Europeans. You don't have that. And if you just say, well, I'm saying that if everything else came out of Africa, then it only makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. If we're going to do scholarship, we got to do real scholarship. And scholarship you have to have some points of proof. You can't just fantasize this stuff. So that homosexuality originated in Europe, and it was used, and just like I believe it's used now as another weapon, like as Ward just said, to make the men act more like women and to make the women act more like men, because and this is not to attack homosexual people. This is not that. This is not a tirade against homosexual people, but you don't find a lot of homosexual people starting the Black Panther Party. You don't find a lot of homosexuals starting the Nation of Islam, starting the Moorish Science Temple. You just don't, that is just not the desire. You know, that has not traditionally been the desire to liberate and free a group of people. That has not traditionally been the desire of a homosexual man. It just hasn't been. You know, it just simply hasn't been. So our family structure and our relationship dynamic is in complete shambles now. It's completely destroyed. You know, it's in complete shambles. You know, for the most part, I hear more men having baby mamas than having wives. You know, they have way more. You done had 2 wives. Well, you done had 2 wives. Hell, there's dudes that done had 6 baby mamas. You know what I'm saying? So she was good enough to put a baby in and bring a new life into the world, but not good enough to make that marriage commitment to. You know, and vice versa from the woman's standpoint. And that's destructive. And let me say, I know you want to come in here, E, but I need to say this. So now you're dealing with a woman who's had 3 baby daddies. Let's limit it to 3. And she's been in a long-term relationship with these 3 baby daddies. And if she's had 3 baby daddies, she's not with him now, she's with you, then that means all of these was failed relationships in some way, form, or fashion, that some emotional attachment existed. So here it is, whatever his dysfunction was, put into the woman. Then the next dude's dysfunction put into the woman. Then the next dude's dysfunction put into the woman. And the woman is steady reincarnating the dysfunction of these messed up men that she chose to lay down and mate with. And then you having to deal with Joe, Jack, and Billy. You having to deal with him coming out of her. You know what I'm saying? You having to deal, because we got to understand how chemicals work. Because DNA, sperm, the many times that he done came in her, and then psychological effects of just being around that type of person, whatever arguments, whatever fights, whatever confusion they had, this is what you're getting when you meet this woman. And you're trying to build a life with her, and she really needs to detox from all the BS that she's been through. She honestly needs to detox, and maybe he does too. And that's why I'm in 100% agreement with you about the fact that it's going to be hard to create freedom in the community until those relationships are repaired, because the people themselves ain't even been repaired.
You know, so Rashida, my oldest, will be 30 years old in a few days. Man, it's a long time.
Man, that's cold.
Cold, man.
I'm still thinking, I know she done grew. I'm thinking she like 20 here.
Nah,
she 30.
She 30 almost. She what, 5'10", 5'11". She a big girl now. But when she was maybe 5 or 6 or something, probably younger than that, she referred to me one time, and I know she was quoting other people, but she referred to me as her mama's baby daddy. And that shit hit me so hard. We were driving at the time. I had to pull over, and we had a conversation about how I am never will be. Please don't ever call me that again. Ignore it if somebody else says it about me. I'm not a baby daddy. And that's, whenever I meet a sister and we have that conversation, you know, you so how many kids you got, and you've been married and all that kind of shit. I'm always careful to put up front, I was married twice, and tie that to I have children. I don't want to say I have 4 children, because in the back of my mind, the automatic at this point is, oh, you got 4 baby mamas, or you just going around making kids and shit. And that's not at all what the case is. It's the difference between a baby daddy and a father or baba for me. But yeah, she messed my head up when she said that. And that was when I started having these epiphanies just about, you know, that type of thing. But I think even if we look at it, you know, there's never, you know, if you look at the sun in our solar system, that sun in our solar system has multiple moons that he shines a light on. That's just a fact. Now, there are binary stars in other solar systems. To the best of my knowledge, there are no planets that they're looking for life in. There are no moons. There's just this dynamic between suns spinning around each other, doing whatever the hell suns do when they spin around one another. But I like the idea and the way that you put it about not just physically, but a man being that knowledge, essentially the cosmos, and impregnating a woman's mind primarily, and giving birth to a reflection, you know, having that wisdom and finding that understanding by that dynamic. And this is kind of where we've been weaponized. It's very much, to me, how we've been weaponized. But one of the things that I've heard is, well, one of the things that I get, that I understand, is that sometimes sisters want to do that, but the caliber of males that they encounter and deal with are not the type that they want essentially to quote unquote follow, to submit or be compliant or to, you know, be humbled to. So if, okay, for instance, why is LeBron James so good at what he does? That's a question y'all can answer. It's real simple. Don't think too fucking hard and mess up my analogy.
Training and practice.
Practice. He practices dribbling that ball. He practices layups. He practices shooting and passing and all of that shit constantly. 10, 12, 14, 18 hours a day for 20, 30 years. So he's in the running to be the GOAT. He's in the running to be one of the greatest of all time. Jordan, same thing. Practice endlessly all the time, over and over and over again, which should let us know that what you practice over and over and over again is what you become good at.
True indeed.
So now, and I've had encounters with sisters talk about, even sisters from the continent will talk about beautiful things from back home. They'll talk about, they're not Christian. They go into the sciences and spiritual sciences and systems, and they want to talk about metaphysics and esoterics, but they want to live the exquisite life. They want to live the fly life. They essentially want to serve two masters. So in their mind, somehow they can find a man in corporate America who is well versed in the metaphysics of the world. They can find a man in corporate America that is open and honest and giving and all of these beautiful things that she talks about, you know, this Prince Charming shit that women are brought up to have in their heads. But the reality of it is, if this dude is moving up in corporate America, he's moving up in corporate America just like LeBron James, because he practices those traits, those things that corporate America rewards. He practices them. And War, you know, having gotten as close to corporate America and studied it as much as you have, that those traits, those tendencies, those abilities are not traits and abilities that are reflective of a healthy community. Things like being manipulative, being dishonest. And you don't practice these 8 hours while you're at work. The higher up you go, the more you practice them outside of work. So now you've got 10 or 12 hours a day answering emails and whatnot, of manipulating, playing politics and all of these things. So you want a man who can give you all of these beautiful material things, but at the same time, you want him to practice something, or you want him to give you something that he doesn't practice. If he doesn't practice honesty and being upfront with you and all of these beautiful things, how the hell can he give it to you? The only way he can come up in corporate America is not to be honest. I've been there. I was way too honest. Didn't make the cut. Don't want to make the cut. Whatever. But if he's practicing these traits and whatnot, these dastardly traits that allow one to move up the corporate ladder, where is it you're expecting him to get number one, the desire to give you these things, because he's not being rewarded in his mind. He's not being rewarded for being honest with you. He's not being, honest with anybody. He's being rewarded for playing the game. So of course he's going to carry that into everything else, because that's what he practices. That's what he knows how to do. So when he interacts with you, you are a part of that. That's just the way it is. So you can't serve two masters. You get one or the other. You get a broke, honest motherfucker, or you get a wealthy, dishonest motherfucker. Take your pick. That's pretty much what it boils down to. I'm not saying all broke motherfuckers are honest. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you are not going to find someone who understands cultivating a relationship, working in corporate America on those high levels, the way you will find someone who understands cultivating a relationship, who actually has to cultivate a farm, or someone who actually has to cultivate their day-to-day life and interacts with human beings and cultivates relationships on an up and up one-on-one situation. You're just not going to find it, because they're not rewarded. So sisters have to be able to make a decision as to what it is. Do you want the pretty gold things? That's fine. That's what you want. But understand there's a price to pay for that. There's a trade-off. You're not going to get everything. There's a trade-off. You'll be lonely in your red bottoms, or you'll be happy in your chucks. One of the two. That's the way the ball rolls. And I think, was War somebody? Yeah, oh yeah, War. The whole idea of polyandry. I'm gonna tell you right now.
There'll be some women that'll say you're being selfish and you're being yeah. How would you respond to that?
I'll say hell yeah. But again, going back to the idea of there's no successful known universe, solar system that has two suns in it, with moons attempting to orbit multiple suns. It just doesn't happen that way. Number one. Number two, if we look, what you cocking your head to the side for, War?
Because from a higher spiritual realm, we always go back to the binary system of what ancient Kemet talked about and the Dogons knew about. So there's binary star systems that are considered to be what seeded this star. So I don't know. I'm just saying, change your example. I agree with what you're saying, but change the example.
Now, when you have a binary star, when you have two suns rotating each other, they are at odds with one another. Yeah, both of them are attempting to shine into the universe, and this heat and the gravitational pull from those suns makes it. How the fuck do you have two suns and you have a moon going like this around each? It don't War. It don't. That's not the. Yes, there were binary star systems, but was there life that visited us specifically from those binary star systems, or were those binary star systems part of the roadmap that got them here? Come on.
Yes, there was life. In fact, if y'all study astrophysics, there are habitable zones no matter how the star structures are created. So just keep that in mind. I'm not denying what you're getting at. I just think there's a better example. Let me add
notes on that bullshit.
Let me add something to what we're getting at, because I think the people that are watching this need to take into account the fact that when we talk about practice, I think what most people fail to realize is that practicing something that makes you good is obviously what makes you good at it. Most people don't recognize the unconscious practice of something, which is what create dysfunctionality. So from that same standpoint, every person is practicing something, and they're practicing it to the degree that where they become mastery at it. The problem is, are you practicing it from a conscious perspective to actually gain a position of being able to utilize a skill, or are you practicing it unconsciously because you don't know what to do with your time, you don't know what to do with your value, and you don't know your work? Because so many people practice unconsciously at something to the point to where they get good at being dysfunctional, and they don't recognize that as actually being what they contribute to the relationship or contribute to life, is that they have practiced being so bad at being able to be in a healthy relationship, or so bad in being able to be a healthy person or having an intact point of view of themselves, that when they cohabitate with someone else, they don't recognize that they bring that practice that they've had into the relationship, and now all of a sudden the two are battling with one another in terms of one having a better point of view or a better position of knowledge of self, a better position of self-identity, and the other person being to where they have this insecurity that plays itself out to where everything external to them is at fault. And so it creates that conflict within that relationship. And sometimes the unhealthy person finds the healthy person attractive subconsciously because they want to be more like them. But instead of actually using them for the sake of healthiness, they use them for the sake of bringing that other person down. And a lot of this is unconscious practice. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because I think most people don't recognize things that they do repetitively, regardless of whether it's something I set out to do or something that happens to be a cycle that I continue to build upon, is actually practice. And so there is plenty of unconscious, unhealthy practices going on, which creates the whole cycle that we're talking about. And I just wanted to bring that up. Another thing I wanted to bring up in regards to the cultural aspect and dynamic that we talked about is that goes back to what Syke was talking about. What is it when, from a sexual aspect, when they use the term going Greek, that is when two men are having sex, or when you're having sex with an anus or whatever. That's going Greek. And then when you talk about I want a man that can romance me, that comes from the concept of talking about the Romans. So we have to recognize what spell casting is doing to these relationships. We use these terminologies, not knowing that adds to the dysfunctionality of practice that I'm talking about, because a woman tends to seek a man that is what? Romantic. Not knowing that in terms of the African a way of life, or the African balance within a relationship, doesn't have any place. You want to go marry, you need to go marry a Roman. You don't need to marry an African. You need to marry a Roman if you're seeking romance in your relationship and in your bond. Look up the origin of the concept. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Look at boy getting a little heated. Boy, I like the sound of the boy. We get a little hot, boy. Boy going on.
That's that hidden beta, baby.
Yeah, Auntie gonna come and show you who the alpha is. She ever hear any of this shit? You better watch out.
All right, now where we at now? Y'all were talking about now. I wanted to add on to the sun analogy that we was using. You know, what makes a sun a sun? A sun is a sun in a solar system, at least in ours, because one, it has the greatest amount of light, the greatest amount of heat, and the greatest amount of mass. And because of that mass, it actually has the ability to keep all the rest of the planets in its orbit because of the mass and the attraction of its mass. Scientists say that Jupiter was almost a sun. That's why it has so many moons around it. Jupiter was almost a sun. It just didn't have enough mass. It didn't quite get there. I used to use that as a joke to brothers, because I like to see the original. I like to call the original man the supreme being, meaning that the being that's supreme in his particular situation, he's the son. He's the son of man. He is the truth, the light giver. You know, and sometimes brothers will come up and they'll think they the son and be like, you big, you pretty big, you almost a son, but you just didn't quite make it. You Jupiter. You didn't have enough mass. You were big enough, you just didn't have enough mass. But that was
I'm gonna start calling my boss Jupiter.
That was my and it's ironic. It's funny, and this has nothing to do with our conversation, but Jupiter was the king of the Roman gods. But the king of the concept of African gods was always the sun. And it's ironic that the king of the Roman gods is rotating around the African gods. But back to the point here. So So one of the attributes of a sun is that mass and the ability to create that attraction. So we talk about that, and we talk about a woman having more than one man. Then you have that situation where they're in combat with each other because of that attraction, that mass that men tend to have. For a man, I truly believe, and I don't know a lot about it. I haven't studied enough about it, and definitely have never been the type of man that wanted to be in a situation like this. I don't even want to be a side dude. I don't even want to be a woman's side dude. I'm not feeling that. For a man to accept being in that type of situation, he would have to be beta. He would have to be submissive, because the woman would have to be the dominant in that situation. I've been tricked into that type of situation before by a woman that was lying to end up having a whole husband and everything. And one of my life rules, yeah, I was tricked into that. One of my life rules is I don't mess with married women, because I'm a true believer that anytime a man takes a woman, marry that woman, puts that woman in a home, raises that woman children, whether they're his or children that she already had, feeds that woman, tries to basically put that type of man that has done all that for a woman, you to be long stroking that man's woman, that man will kill you. And, you know, I feel like it's way too many women on the planet to put yourself in a position to disrespect a man to that degree. I truly believe that. And, you know, that's one of the things, anybody that know me, anybody that spend any amount of time around me, my little brother, all that, I preach the same thing. Man, if she got a husband, leave that alone. There's too many women. There's no use of putting ourselves in that type of situation, you know? So I honestly can't see how men could be in a situation like that and be in full possession of the traditional attributes of manhood. I just can't see it.
Well, I mean, it's illogical all over again, because just, you know, going from the premise that a man's responsibility is to project knowledge into the mind of a woman, into the, you know, this cosmological, the cosmos, the world. That's why he goes out and he rules the day, comes back home. You know, since most of the people that I've talked to that say something to the effect of, I don't want to study that, I don't want to hear about the news and because it makes me feel bad, because I don't like it, because it's just negative, have been women. You know, the bullshit that goes on out there in that world, I get it, I understand. Sisters don't want to hear that shit. That shit is stressful, that shit is depressing, that shit is anger filled, all of that. So it's a part of his responsibility to gather that shit up, distill what he can from it, and project that into the home so that the home can be prepared to deal with whatever the world brings to it. That's just his role. And if you have two sons that are attempting to project this information that they've distilled, which is going to be two different perspectives, two different vantage points, sister's going to be going in at least two different directions, because she's being filled from one and filled from another. So yeah, I would agree. Any male that is involved in a situation like that is very much the beta. You know, and again, if you looked at the natural world, you know, you don't have two, quote unquote, like you said, alphas, or even the males that are the top. You don't have two of those in a situation. You don't have two husbands or two, you know, top dogs in a relationship or whatever. You have the male, and that's it. Any male that comes up under is a child. When in our traditional systems, when a boy gets to a particular age, he's in a sense kicked out the house. I'm talking about back home in Africa, where we still do, in some areas where we still do things right. He's in essence put out the house to go build a house, to go build a family, while the sisters are allowed to stay at home much longer than the male is, because that's a part of his responsibility. And so when he takes that responsibility and goes out and does that, again, this woman can't bounce between two men's homes. That's just, you know, it's just not going to work. You know, we've got nature to side to that. But yeah, again, to address your question about husbandry, nah. I mean, polyandry, nah, no good, kid. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it. I'm not finna be, like you said, a side dude and an actual healthy, beneficial relationship. I don't care who you are. Dude, you don't know better than me. You don't. That's my arrogance. That's my ego, especially when it comes to my home. You know, what she needs to be contributing in my home goes over, spends time with you, and comes back and brings some of your silliness. Because 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be doing what it is I'm doing. So whatever is brought back is going to be stuff that's outside of cipher and just going to cause confusion. Because now you got this more worldly shit going on that's being poured into her, and she comes back and tries to apply that in this home, and it just doesn't make sense.
I just wanted to put that out there so I can create some chatter in from people texting.
About time you did something like that. Because usually boring. I be telling people y'all boring too, just to let you know. I'm Sight. You said I'm a joker. You remember that? You called me the joker in our particular trio. Yeah. I would like to invite you to listen to Alan Watts' a lecture on the role of the Joker, and that's very much. Sometimes, Matt, Heath Ledger said it in Batman. He was a real good Joker, the one that died or blew his head off or some shit. He said, sometimes I just do shit for the sake of doing it. Yeah, so sometimes I get a little tired, so I appreciate you having a little bit of input to the discussion there, Brother War. Thank you very much. So I think, I
was gonna say, so where do we go from here in terms of the idea, again, of how the alpha male plays in polygamy versus the other types, archetypes in terms of polygamy?
Well, the beta would never be in a polygamous relationship.
He would if he was told to.
Yeah, yeah.
Shut up and have more than one woman, motherfucker.
Yeah. And the alpha, and the sigma, actually, because of his nonconformity, the sigma, gets around like Tupac. Sigma gets around a little bit too, but the alpha attracts more than one woman. That's just period. Now, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna go on a lamb right here because nobody said it. I think polygamy is probably more natural than monogamy. I believe, because of the way man and woman is structured and set up. I mean, if we look at polygamy, even back in the day when men were going out to war, so a lot of women was left at home without that protection. And back then, women, it wasn't like modern day times is now. So in order for that woman to be taken care of, a man would take on her and her children, her responsibilities, and another woman and another woman. A man does that even now. Even if he's not in a sexual relationship with a woman, he still has that pull and that ability to teach and educate. You have men that start little league teams, or even just get the kids out and take them out to the field and play football with them in the hood, because the daddies wasn't never there. They was either in prison or got killed, or never just in the picture. So these men played roles and played parts with these children. I mean, even me and Puncho, my middle brother, we even did the same thing. So we didn't know what we was doing. We didn't understand it, and that's why the culture of the Panther was so just natural for me. We did it in our hood, because we was the alphas in our neighborhood. And while we didn't play sports, we did protect a lot of the youngsters, taught them how to fight, spent time with them, did things like that. We didn't know that we was doing those roles, but these things happen, and it was times where some of their mothers, when they would be doing something wrong, would tell us about it and ask us, can you talk to them? And primarily what she was saying was discipline them, get on them, because he would listen to y'all while he not listening to us. So I think these roles are kind of important to that degree. And he said it before, I think that the problem is that modern day woman has this desire to control man. She has this desire. I don't want you messing with no other. I don't. You mine, possession. And and it got so bad now. Brother Ward talked about it in one of his classes, not the last one, that political education class that was just posted, but it's one right before that. What was it called, Brother Ward? Because you talked about how social media is now used as like a tool for women to try to spy, and it's destroying relationships. And what was the name of that class, that particular class?
I do not remember the name of my classes after I move on. I don't watch.
But I've seen that firsthand, where a woman sees a heart on a damn post and think that means you're cheating with a woman that you've never met in your life. You don't even know this woman. You've never met this woman. You just have a post that you put on Facebook. Somebody likes it. They got, they got the little symbols, the thumb, the heart, and all this other stuff, the laughing face. And some reason in society now, women think that the heart one means that they actually have an emotional attachment to you, and for us, at least I'm gonna speak for myself, I tend to think that the heart means that I'll super like this particular post. Well, I might see one post, Brother Wardrop, I might be like, I put a thumb on that, and that's cool. But if he say something that touch home, I hit the heart on it. It's not a I want to have sex with you type thing. You know what I'm saying? It's just my approval of the post, and women don't see it that way. Women don't see these things in that type of light. They see something else, and they go to Facebook and Instagram, whatever social media, and they dig and they dig and they dig and they look for things. And one of the things that I know about, when you look for something, you're gonna find it, because you'll make it real in your own mind. One of the things we do, one of the things most of us, unless we are operating from a extremely conscious level, a supremely conscious level, and we're operating at that high third eye level of understanding, most of us don't look at reality for what reality is. We look at our perception of reality. We're looking at through our lens of how we think reality is. And so we find whatever it is we're looking for.
No doubt. And that idea, that insecurity that underlies so much of it, and we have to acknowledge, and this is where it'd be nice to have a sister on to give her perspective and whatnot. But the reality of it is, a lot of us has fed into that bullshit. I know I did back in the day. I fed into a lot of women's insecurity about infidelity and things of that nature. But that gets carried forward, and again, that's part of the weaponization. Sisters have to fall back on. This has been what manhood is to me, so this is what I'm judging it by. So we have the application of brothers actually doing it. We also have the theory, the idea that flashed across the screen, this what do you call it, Prince Charming, should be, all of these 100% da 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 da. And the reality is, ain't no man gonna live up to the dreams in your head. The dreams in your head are your problem. You have to deal with that, not me. And it's funny at this part, and I guess it's having lived, I'm being 51 now and thinking back when I was 20 or 21, but I like, sometimes it's fun. And I guess it's the Sigma thing about not giving a shit about the rules and all of that. But I've told, like you were talking about earlier, being controlled or manipulated or influenced or whatever, finesse versus aggression. And I've told women at times, just to see what would happen with the, and to let them know, yes, but at the same time, to see what the response would be. I'm gonna tell you exactly how to manipulate me. Okay, this is all you need to do. So if you do this, this, and this, and this, no resistance. I'm good. And it's funny to me how that shit never works.
Doesn't work.
Because
I tried to tell my children's mother the same thing. I'm simple, I'm easy, and
Steve Harvey, my bad. Real quick, this is real short. Steve Harvey, can't stand this jackass, but he had some book, and he said in there, to keep a man happy, we real simple. Feed me, fuck me, tell me I'm doing good. That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
It's a wrap. That's all you got to do. Simple shit. But my bad. Go ahead, bro.
And then the opposite of that would run a man away. Like you just said, when I'm doing everything in my power to try to give you what you say you want to make you happy, and you're still not happy, it's like, what's wrong with her? I'm doing everything I can possibly do. You telling me that what I'm doing is not enough, and it probably goes back to the fact that women are living these Disney movie fantasies in their head, and they expecting this man who has worked 10 and 12 hours a day to try to provide for her and the children, who's actually doing his best, and she's still complaining. See, she don't realize he's doing his best. But when she started complaining, in his head, he's like, oh my God, I just gave my 100% and she's not happy. I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm in trouble.
There's a song I'm working on. Wait a minute, boy. You're boring. Wait a minute. You be a little more entertaining. You get more time on screen. But I'm actually playing around some music now. It's Amos Wilson talked about how we've taken on somebody else's value system and are attempting to work our relationships around those values. And they're not even our fucking values. You know, the things we expect from one another are not our values. That's not stuff that held our communities together. So that comes from ignorance on her part and his part. But since we're talking about women, on her part, not knowing the history, not knowing the culture, not knowing what a family is supposed to produce, not knowing what a relationship is supposed to produce, and not knowing how to make it produce that, but wanting to exist in this emotional state and force that shit down somebody's throat. It's not gonna fucking work. It's just not. My bad. Go ahead, War.
I was gonna say, just to remind us, Syke and others that's listening, the video he was referring to when I was talking about the aspects of the likes and so forth on social media is called the de-evolution of social integrity. But also, what we're talking about in regards to that goes back to what I stated earlier about how, well, the woman is attempting to make you a Roman because she wants to be, romanticized. And so from that standpoint, even going into the relationship y'all was saying earlier, and I would like to make a minor correction, is that the male energy represents the sun and the female energy represents the earth or the planet, and it is the child that is the moon in that relationship, because the woman cultivates and nurtures, which is how you deal with the cultivation of life, which goes to the planet. But at the same time, what we're failing to realize is it goes into what I was saying earlier about what that person has been practicing, because people unconsciously practice something on their mates, not knowing that unconscious practice was dysfunctional. So even though you may tell them what it takes to win you over, the point being, they're from their natural natural ability to cultivate, they're now misplaced on that value system, and so they want to cultivate their man to the point of trying to manipulate and make him operate the way they want him to operate. But that's the nurture in them, but it's a misplaced and a misfocused nurture because they have been taught it or been exercising it from a dysfunctional perspective. And so that causes them to actually go out and try to shape you the way they want to shape you, not the way you want to be, but the way they want you to be. So even though you provide an answer or a solution to being able to keep the situation harmonious and in balance between the two, because of what they've been unconsciously practicing that is dysfunctional within a relationship, they're going to have to do it the way they want to do it, not the way you tell them works, but the way they want to do it and the way they've been practicing doing it. And that's how they've been brought up. And so going into that aspect of how that earth has been going through that cycle, it is off balance and out of shift. And that's really no different if we look at the natural world. That's really no different than what we're dealing with now in terms of one aspect of life creating havoc on another aspect of life and throws the whole ecosystem off balance. And as that ecosystem is thrown off balance, what happens is when the people the small minority attempt to try to bring it back in balance, is dealing with the fact that the mass majority of people are so caught up on how they've been living to where they're not able to make the proper adjustment to get things back in harmony. So then they go into the relationship with dysfunctionality, and by going into it with that dysfunctionality, because it is all they know, and because they're unconscious of what really does work, they expect the amount of work that they put into it, even though they're doing it wrong. Just people tend to think that if I give something a lot of work, not knowing that it has to be a certain type of work, but by just simply giving it my all, that is going to make the relationship work. Not knowing that it's not about giving it your all, it's about giving it the correct, righteous process. See, because a person can force something to simply work because they think that if I just give it enough attention, even though they don't recognize that it's not about the amount of attention you give it, it's about the proper process. Not knowing how to properly nurture a situation, no matter how much of your forcing nurture into a situation, if you don't know how to nurture properly, you're going to bring self-destruction to that relationship. And so I think that's part of the thing, is that people are not recognizing that they have to be able to identify with themselves and how that resolved and figured out, which prevents that insecurity from coming in there, which prevents them from trying to change the climate and force a climate into a relationship that shouldn't be there. So that's my boring part there, Brother E.
Well, something you said that I had flashes just in my head. What was it you said? Changing? That shit scares the hell out of me. In my head, I could see, when I think about the prospect of having a wife or whatever move into my home, I know one of the first things she's gonna want to do is put up some damn pictures on my walls, and I'm gonna lose my shit. I'm not kidding. I'm gonna lose my shit. I put too much work and effort into my walls and whatnot, and they're that way for a reason, because y'all know, you can walk into somebody's house and just stand in that one room and read a whole lot about what's going on in that person's mind, just based on the way they have it furnished. Do they have piles of crap everywhere? Whatever. You can read a lot about that person's inner emotional state by that. And I've worked hard to make my home and my emotional state vibe off of one another and maintain a certain place in this world. And it just messes with my head, the thought of somebody coming in for the sake of a relationship. And I ain't mad at them, that's what they do. But coming in and putting pictures all over my wall and shit, it just freaks me out. But I think
they're not gonna put a picture on your wall. In your case, she's gonna put up wallpaper.
No, hell no. See, that's it. That's the end of the relationship right now. You go ahead and get the fuck out.
That's why you cannot be in a relationship, because you have to be willing to compromise. If you bring her in, then it's no longer your house. You have you got to make it her home.
I know.
I tried, and I don't think I'm the perfect guy. I got my problems.
You are.
I got my problems, but I tried this before, and I let a woman come in, and she would start. First thing you said it, you ain't lying. First thing she did is she started looking around and say, "This whole thing looks like a man cave." And I told her, I say, man, do what you want to do. Do whatever you want to do. What you want to put up. I gave her run, because you have to give her a functional woman. You have to make her the queen of the castle. You have to do that. Because see, a man's job is to play his primary role outside of the home. That's his job. He is commander-in-chief outside the home. But you have to let her be commander-in-chief inside the home. You have to. You got to let that woman make a home. You have to let her do it. And if you can't let her do it, then she'll never feel at home. And the cold thing is, I was just messing with a woman that was so, whatever it is, done been through so much. All the stuff you talked about in the beginning that women have suffered through and went through, I was dealing with a woman that went through all of that. She could be the poster child for that. And no matter what I did, she just could not be happy. She just couldn't be. She a lot of us need it, but she needed counseling.
Yeah.
A lot of people need counseling so they can do that inner work to try to find out what kind of problems that they really have before they try to connect with another human being.
I'm pretty sure she related to my second ex. That's the case, because that was absolutely the case in that situation. But and maybe this, what I'm going to say, leads into another conversation. But because of the whole gender role shit, for me, that's really where it started breaking down on that level. Was the gender roles and women having to work outside the home to maintain and for various reasons and whatnot. But the reality of it is a lot of this insecurity, because my studies have told me that insecurity yes, it's always been there, but like so much else in this society, it gets exacerbated and capitalized on because there's money and power to be made based off of it. But because of that, women have lost an understanding of what their actual power is. And for me, that relates to beauty. You know, that when I talk about art, this is why the one mural that I have on the front with the decimal, with the prayer converted into decimal, but it's put in a picture. And so you have these numbers that are obviously mathematics, logic, but it's blended into this emotional expression and given to in an emotional way. And for me, that's the balance for art. That's the dance between art, and I suggested it as a class, and y'all acted like, you know, what the fuck I was talking about, but that's fine. But for me, art is this balance between the beauty of a thing and the substance of a thing. It can look good, and that's the yin. The substance, the expression that's behind it is the yang, and it has to have that balance. And so that yin, that female, that feminine aspect, her actual power is beauty. Being able to captivate. I mean, you look at the dude like Psych. This dude work out for like 30 hours a day, bench pressing cows and shit, you know, arm wrestling bulldozers and whatnot. But I guarantee you, a woman walks up that catches his eye and looks at him a certain way, and all y'all know exactly what kind of way I'm talking about. Looks at him a certain kind of way, and he already said it. Looked at him with those eyes just right, will have him buckling at the knees, be like, hey, all his guard just goes away. No more of that steely hard stuff. All of a sudden, it's this, hey, this real nice guy, this soft guy, this guy that wants to talk and have a conversation about trees and tiddlywinks and all this other bullshit. And that's the power of a woman, is to captivate on the surface, to take hold of a man's inner just because men are visual. You know, that's why porn is geared toward males, and what's not called porn, but is actually porn, those romance novels, or it's the word. That's porn for women. But porn for men is visual. So when a woman walks in and catches the eye and is able to just, you know, jiggle her face or twist her hips in a certain way, men will stop what they're doing and be like, whoa, and just actually factually be hypnotized by a woman's hips. Not having sex with her, not touching her. Strip club, just sitting across in the strip club, watching a woman's hips do that shit right there. That's a woman's power, is the